Welcome in, you guys. You're listening to Andrea with From Mrs. to Ms. I have someone special here with me today that I would like to introduce. I have Susan Morgan Taylor with me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her in a minute, but I want to say hi first. So, hi.
Hello. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And I am going to add in, Susan and I have been attempting to get together for this episode for you guys for a little bit now. I shamefully rescheduled her 3 times and she's been so gracious. So we're so excited to have her here this one. And she is a sex therapist for couples. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Susan, is a leading somatic sex therapist who helps couples deepen their intimacy and create lasting, fulfilling connections. With over 25 years of experience in somatic healing, she has developed the Pleasure Keys process. It's a powerful approach to reigniting sexual and emotional harmony in relationships. So after personal awakening from a sexless marriage, I can't wait to hear about that, Susan became passionate about helping others remove obstacles to pleasure, love, and orgasm. She is also the creator of the Pleasure Keys retreats and host of the Sex Talk Cafe podcast. And when not working, she enjoys hiking and singing karaoke in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Oh, I'm so happy to have you. This is going to be fun, you guys, because you know I love talking about sex. and and so to have an expert here to tell us more than me just talking about my lack of orgasms, is very exciting.
All right. Yes. Oh, I'm so excited, Andrea. Thanks so much for having me as your guest. I know we're going to have a blast, and I hope offer a lot of value to your listeners today so they can really leave this conversation with us with some actionable tips and just some good education and steps they can take in their own lives to make things better.
Perfect. We're on the same brain wavelength here. So I love this to start out. So let's start at the beginning. So as we just mentioned, you left a sexless marriage to embark on your own sexual journey. So can you tell us a little bit more? Like, just kind of tell us what happened. Why was it sexless? Like how you got to where you do.
Yeah. I didn't know that I was leaving in order to embark on my sexual journey. That was sort of a
Surprise.
side effect from a couple of years later. And I waited a little while before I got into another relationship. I kind of dated and flirted, but before I really, wanted to be sexual with somebody again, it was a couple of years after my divorce. And that was the wake up call that made me kind of where I am today. But let me kind of back up to the sexless marriage. And you said, like, what made it sexless? And I think this is a really relevant point to make for your listeners, because there's a lot of things that can lead to sexlessness. And what I didn't know at the time was that, I really felt I was the one who was not interested in sex. I felt asexual. I had 2 little kids. There was a lot of emotional disharmony in the marriage. I was emotionally really shut down and withdrawn. I had a lot of depression and anxiety. It was really just, in a place where I was feeling very trapped. And what I didn't really realize at the time was the context and what's happening in our environment, how we're feeling about ourselves is really a huge impact on our sexual libido, how we feel with our partner.
Yeah.
And, because there was a lot of emotional disharmony and a lot of arguing and fighting and yelling, there was, just a lot of stuff that wasn't really conducive to me being able to open vulnerably and emotionally. I also had patterns in my body and my psyche from just being growing up in the family I grew up in, where it was not okay to show anger, was really not allowed. It's okay to be happy and all the positive things, but you shouldn't be angry. It's not okay to be angry. And so what ended up happening, I didn't even realize this, right? But I sort of shut down all of my emotions. And so I just became not really able to access the thing I was most longing for. So even though I wasn't interested in having sex with my husband at the time, there was this part of me that wanted a deep and meaningful sexual connection. And I just didn't know how to create it. So I named that, like in retrospect, I call that the unidentifiable more. I knew that something more was possible, but I just didn't know how to get there. And so I did what any smart woman would do, any typical woman would do, and I just blamed him, like,
Right.
right. I mean, he just must not know. He's not a good lover. He doesn't know my body. But the
Yeah.
truth was, and what I discovered a couple years later when I was in another relationship that was really just a catalyst, and that relationship kind of ended as soon as it began. But what I realized was that nobody can really do that for me, that I'm responsible for my pleasure. And it's that I'd always made my partner responsible for figuring it out and rocking my world and making it great. And therefore I was left disappointed, like kind of a lot, because I didn't even know my own body. So that's a little bit of the sexless marriage,
Yeah.
the environmental factors and the shutdown from just the stress of being a mom, financial stress, a lot of emotional disharmony. Because when I left the marriage, I thought I was asexual. I thought, well, maybe I'm just, maybe I'm just, this isn't for me. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I left that relationship, it's like my life force, sexual libido came back online like some kind of other thing. I mean, I was like, what is this? It was so exciting. I felt sexy. I felt alive. I felt beautiful again, where I just hadn't felt that way in so long. And so I
Yeah.
knew that it wasn't, it was contextual, it was
Mhm.
environmental in a sense of, like, what was actually happening relationally and then also internally in my inner psychological realm.
Mm.
So, yeah,
Gosh, I love that you just explained all that because I think that a lot of listeners, just a lot of everybody's going through that. I went through the same thing in my
yeah,
marriage. So I'm really relating to that where I just felt like I didn't want sex when I was married. I wasn't, I blamed it on not being attracted to him. He didn't understand me, and
yeah,
I felt like it was a chore all the time. I was literally in the bathroom going, come on, you can just, come on, like ramping myself up for this,
right,
Yeah. But on the same token, wanting more and knowing that I'm so much more capable of
yeah,
having more. And so I love that you said that because I felt the same way when I came out. And I've said this today. My ex-husband wouldn't even recognize me sexually at this point. So
yeah,
that is really interesting to see that it had nothing to do, with him. It was me that didn't know my body well. It was me
right,
that didn't know all of those things, right? And to feel
yeah,
comfortable in the space that I was. I mean, he would be like, "What are you thinking about while
right,
you're having sex?" And
right.
I'm like, I gotta concentrate, I mean, I was always always shooing him away, poor guy. I
Mm,
mean, he just stuck
yeah.
by me, but
Oh.
I think a lot of people go through this,
A lot of people do go through it, and I think that's
Yeah.
part of I mean, yeah, you said it wasn't really him at all, and that might have actually really been true, and I find that I mean, in my case,
Yeah.
yeah, there was some stuff that was my ex, but a lot of it also is me and not really we have to have a certain amount of relational safety. That
Mhm.
has to be the basic level of trust. But I think what happens for a lot of women is we don't know how to ask for what we want and we don't even know what we want, much less what do we
Yeah.
need in the moment. So a very simple place for your listeners here who are like resonating with this. It really starts with what do I need right now? What would I need
Yes.
so that I could open and relax and surrender and soften even just a tiny little bit more. It doesn't mean we have to
Mm.
just completely bloom, but
Mhm.
that's what our bodies are designed to do, like a rosebud, to bloom and to open. And that's really where
Mm.
our bliss and our sexual turn on comes. And if we're in a relational space or in a household where we're not feeling like it's safe to soften our heart and to open and
Mhm.
to be vulnerable and soft, then our pussies are not gonna open either. Like, our
Right.
sexual center is highly connected with our heart. We have 2 hearts in a woman's body. We have the
Mhm.
womb, which is literally, our sex center, and then we have our physical heart up here in the chest.
Mhm.
These 2
Mhm.
points are, intimately connected, and so when one is blocked, and usually in women, it's like the heart center shuts down, then our libido goes away. If we're not
Yeah.
feeling like we can bloom emotionally, we're not gonna bloom sexually either. So, how
Mm.
do we start to learn it's so simple. It's just what would I need right now? What is it that I need right now? Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need to breathe more deeply. Maybe I need to voice some of the stuff that's bothering me and get that off.
Mhm.
Maybe I just need to be listened to. So
Yes.
that's really the simplest place to begin. And we are absolutely 100% responsible for that. And it's so frustrating for a guy to be like, what do you need? What do you need? What's going on? What are you thinking? How can I help? And we're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes.
Or I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right. That's the wall. We're just giving him the wall. And so many men get frustrated with that, rightly
Mhm.
so. And it's really, you can't force the rose to bloom. So as women, we
Mhm.
have to learn how to bloom. and how to allow our
Yes.
man or our partner to help us bloom, because that's the gift that our partners can bring. They can help us bloom, but we have to let them.
Right. That's such a great point. And I think it's also about finding the right time to have these conversations too. Cause sometimes when you are in it, you're right in the middle of it. And just like I said, he's asking me, what are you thinking about? What are your fantasies? What do
Yeah.
you like? That honestly,
You're
Susan,
like,
gets
"I
me
don't
so
know."
flustered when they start
Yes.
asking me, tell me what you like. I hate that question.
Yeah, I
I
know, like,
hate
in the middle of sex, like, I don't
it's
know.
so it just cringeworthy, and I'm like, "No, don't ask me that," like, but I'm also in my head going, "You should know what I like," when it
Right,
could be a totally new partner, and they don't, right? But I just don't like being asked, and I feel like those conversations should also be happening outside of the bedroom so that when you do get in the bedroom, you can have it's already there, you already know, he's kind of like, "Oh, I know she mentioned she liked this," right? So that
right.
sometimes makes
And
it
I know,
easier.
I totally get that, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
that comes back to this part of responsibility and the self-exploration. So, what
Mm.
happened for me in my journey was I left the marriage. And a couple years later, I got in this other relationship that was very brief, but that man came in with all kinds of sexual knowledge and he had
Oh.
training. And I thought, wow, this guy's going to rock my world. And he promised me, oh, like all these
The
amazing
promises.
experiences. Yeah, right. Yeah, you're going to make your body and do all this stuff. You want a full body orgasm? No problem. Okay.
I got
Dude
you.
did not
Mm.
deliver. The brother did not deliver.
I love it.
But it left me it was a beautiful gift because, well, it did a lot of things for me. I mean, I really had opened my heart to this man. It broke my heart, which was
Yeah,
a beautiful gift. It allowed me to
yeah.
really open for the first time beyond my own defenses on my own,
Mm.
that he we ended things and I decided like, wow, I just wanted something different so badly.
Yeah.
And I realized like, well, he said he was gonna do all this stuff to my body and give me all these experiences. And I thought, well, you know, that's kinda a little bit silly because it's my body, and if he thinks
Yeah.
he can give me those things, then it's my body, so there must be a pathway in my body that I can discover without needing a man out there to do it for
Mm.
me, and so that's what pushed me into this journey to explore my own sexuality, and I started to experiment with my own body and with, some different approaches, and where the pleasure keys is a set of 3 triads with sort of 3 principles in each. And
Okay.
really, and I didn't know that I was doing this at the time, right? But I was learning what's in the first triad of the pleasure keys are these 3 principles of relaxation, awareness, and presence. And it's really learning how to get rid of the goal of trying to
Mhm.
get to an orgasm. So up to this point, sex had always been about just having an orgasm, and I didn't have
Yeah.
any problems with that. It was never a problem for me, but the depth, there was something missing. I'm like, 6, 7, 8 orgasm, great. But there was like something was still missing for me. So I know
Mhm.
the more orgasms is not the answer, at least not to what I
Mm.
was looking for at the time. So I learned how to slow down, get rid of the goal of orgasm as like the whole goal of the self pleasure experience, and how to start to be more present in my body, which
Mhm.
meant that I had to let go of my dependence on mental sexual fantasy. Up to that
Okay.
point, I'd always just used fantasy, and that's how I would get off and get aroused and reach orgasm. So at the beginning, it was kinda challenging because at first I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna I can always go back to fantasy. I know
Mhm.
how to do that route. I just wanted something different." So I set aside the using fantasy, and what I did instead, I learned how to just focus on sensations in my body,
Mhm.
and I got rid of the idea that I'm masturbating or self-pleasuring in order to reach orgasm, and what I'm doing instead, I'm just learning how to be in my body and how to notice sensation. And
Mm.
an amazing thing happened.
What?
I didn't have a lot of sensitivity in my genitals. There was a lot of numbness, shockingly.
I
I
have
didn't
that.
feel
Okay.
Yes,
I'm,
yeah,
like,
okay, good.
leaning in because 'cause I'm like, "You were
Lean
talking to
in.
me
Pull your
today."
seat closer, let's talk about it.
Yes.
So, yeah, so what happened for me was it was really shocking to me because I didn't have a problem reaching orgasm, but when I
Yeah.
really slowed down and I got present and I got out of my head and just into my body, which somatic, by the way, for your listeners, just means body-based instead
Oh,
of
good. I was gonna
mind-based.
ask that. Okay. Body-based.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is just about
Mhm.
focusing on sensations, and
Mhm.
at first I was, like, really frustrated, like, "Why am I not feeling anything? I should be feeling more. Let me add more pressure," which is what we tend to think we need to do when there's numbness, but
Yeah.
actually, the opposite is true. What we
Oh.
wanna do is slow down, even not adding more intensity, but just being present with what's there. And so an interesting thing happened. I told you at first I got frustrated.
Mhm.
So now immediately I'm frustrated. So I'm not numb, I'm frustrated. And
Mhm.
as I just said yes to what was there, I said, okay, there's numbness, there's frustration. And then there was just this deep grief and sorrow and sadness
Mm.
that just started to like pour out of my heart. And it was almost like this energy moving up from my genitals and coming out of my heart, like it was trapped in my
Mm.
genitals and it just needed to be felt. And so I had all this emotional release that happened. And an interesting thing happened as a result of that. The next time that I went back to my what I called pleasure dates, I did these with myself once a week for a couple hours, like on a Tuesday.
Okay.
um,
Well,
I
what did that look like? Can you tell us what your little
Yeah,
pleasure date?
the pleasure dates, it was really just an opportunity for me to practice these skills of relaxing, noticing sensations, slowing down, cultivating this new approach to my connection with myself and with
Mhm.
my own pleasure, where it didn't
Mm.
involve mental fantasy. I call it pleasure dates. I'd light a candle, I'd put on soft music, I'd get naked, I'd get some
Mhm.
oil, and I wouldn't use any toys, I just would use my hands just to really connect with my body. So that's
Mhm.
what the pleasure date was, and
Oh,
so
I love that.
yeah, it's a lovely practice that I really recommend, especially if you're wanting to kinda work on if you have lack of sensitivity, if that's an issue for you, it's a lovely
Yeah.
way to start to consciously work with it and find a new pathway
Mhm.
through. It's about sensitizing the genitals is kinda what we're doing because that's kinda
Mm.
what's going on is there's other stuff that's in the way.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I went back the next, after having those huge emotional releases, when I went back, I actually had more sensitivity. Suddenly I could feel more.
Okay.
Yeah, there was more sensation and I wasn't adding more pressure. I wasn't grabbing the vibrator. I was still doing the same thing I
Mm.
was doing, but suddenly I could feel more.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
yeah, because the thing that gets in the way of our pleasure, really, the main thing is there's one main thing with sort of 3 components, but the main
Mhm.
thing that's the biggest obstacle to our pleasure and our ability to have these sensations and even full body orgasms is tension. Tension is the biggest
Oh,
obstacle.
okay.
And that can show up in the form of in the case that I'm describing there, it was emotional tension. It was where there
Mhm.
were these emotions that I didn't wanna feel, and so I had numbed out from them, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
wanna feel this, or it's not safe to feel it, or I'm not allowed to feel it right now. So I had just numbed out, and how that appears in the body somatically, it shows up as numbness or physical pain. It can also show up in that way. So, emotional tension is a lot of times the thing that's in the way of our ability to have orgasm and have more sensation and more pleasure.
Mm. Hmm.
I'm gonna pause because
Interesting.
I wanna let you interject here, and then I'll continue on with the story, but yeah, let me pause so you
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm just kind of listening to that, and as you're saying this, just stuff's running through my head because I talk about I'm very freely talking all the time about uh my issues sexually, like how it is hard for me to have orgasms, and I was stuck
Yeah.
on you saying when you were like, I love to have 6 or 7 or 8 orgasms, and I was thinking,
Pause, Bessie.
is she doing this with a partner? That's where my head was going for a minute, and so and so I am very much like that. It's very difficult for me to have it with a partner,
Yeah,
but with my own toys and stuff, I can do that. Now it has to be a toy for me. It doesn't work with my hands either. So I'm
yeah,
really interested in listening to what you're saying because I think that's exactly what I need to do is have one of these little pleasure dates by
yeah.
myself and start figuring out my body and myself instead of just, talking about it and saying, I can't. Let me think of what I can do. Right.
And I love what you just said because
Mhm.
mindset is actually also a part of this. And
Mhm.
when I had started out on this exploration, this was back in 2011 where I, was 2 years divorced and just kind of like I need to figure this out. But one of the things that I told myself right away, because we're naturally going to want to fall back into our habits and what's easy. And, you have found
Yeah.
that pathway using toys. That's great. Orgasm is just a pathway. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's really just opening a pathway. So it tells me if you have found that one pathway, you can find the others.
Mm.
But one of the things I had to do was change my mindset as well. I had to tell myself, I, because we get dependent. And so I think I had
Yeah.
become so accustomed to using fantasy and orgasming in a certain way, but I had to tell myself, I am capable of reaching orgasm in any position 'Cause
Yeah.
there was one position where I had never, climaxed, like doggy style for me. It was like, I just had never, and I'd always wanted to, and I don't know why I never, like, could, and I thought that I couldn't. But I thought, "Gosh, I wanna be able to experience orgasmic pleasure and orgasms in all different kinds of positions and in different parts of my body. I wanted this full body experience." So I
Yeah.
had to do that mindset shift, and it's so important to do that because otherwise, like, we really do get stuck in these,
Mm.
we forget that our mind is also part of our body and it's
Mhm.
informing us. And if we have that belief that I can only orgasm using a vibrator, for example, I can only
Mhm.
orgasm if I'm on top, for example, then we're going to believe that and our body's going to follow suit. So, what we need to do is at least be open to the possibility that I can reach climax in any
Anywhere.
position and in many different ways. And you just haven't found it yet. And that's what I truly believe
Oh.
is true. And I think that's absolutely true for you as well.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. So when you talk about somatic sex therapy, you know, I know you kind of explained it. It is the feeling in the body, right? So how does this differ from like talk therapy?
Yeah, talk therapy is really based on talking
Yeah.
and less on can we start to bring the body in as an aspect of what is actually occurring in the
Mhm.
dynamic of the relationship, whether that's, the relationship between a romantic couple or the relationship between a therapist and a client. So a somatic therapist is always going to bring your awareness back into the sensations that are happening in your body and helping you really
Mhm.
navigate. It's a different place that we navigate from versus when we're just navigating from our mind or from talking.
Mhm.
I've seen, cases where there's a real it's sort of like the neck up. Like there's a real disconnect from what's actually happening in our core, which is really like our gut, right? Like where we're
Yeah.
feeling and we're knowing that's where desire lives. But I have seen this happen too often in therapy where we neuter that. We disconnect it. And so couples can get really good at quote unquote communicating
Yeah.
and they've probably learned, there's some great therapeutic techniques out there that are wonderful and that I also teach my couples. But
Mhm.
what can sometimes happen is we get too neat and clean about it
Yeah.
and we're disconnected from what's really happening underneath the words. The words
Mm.
are sort of I don't know how that's how I describe it. It's almost like they're
Yeah.
disembodied. There's no desire, there's no energy under the words. They're just sort of these like, just like a what's the word I'm
Empty.
looking for? Like a headless horseman or something, like,
Yeah.
just
That
words. They're
that's a
empty
good example.
words. We're
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
the right words, but they're not unified with the actual feeling and desire and intent and life force under it. So
Mm.
that's a really important piece of the somatic work is making sure that there's coherence between our words and what we're actually sensing and feeling and knowing and how we learn from this place here in the body. I'm pointing to the core of
Mhm.
my body for the audio listeners,
Mhm.
versus just let me analyze it and think about it and then say the nice, nice, clean, neutral thing that I'm supposed to say because I've learned how to be a good communicator, so to speak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, and I think you kind of already answered this, like, what is the number one obstacle for women when they're facing pleasure? And it sounds like it is the mindset, right? And that's what I'm assuming. But is there something
Yeah,
else
we could
as
roll
well?
with mindset because I think the biggest obstacle for a lot of women is related to mindset, but it's the fear of vulnerability. It's the
Oh,
fear of
yeah.
softening and that we fear our own chaos or our own, and that relates to the emotional piece, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, the emotions are really unified with our sexual energy and our libido in a
Mhm.
woman specifically.
Mhm.
A little bit different, usually not for all men, but if we're talking generalities. So
Mhm.
as women, if we're afraid of appearing and we're shamed in our culture, you're too emotional, don't be such a
Mm.
bitch, or you work a
Yeah.
job where you're not allowed. I mean, your emotions are a liability in most of those work settings, right? We have
Yeah.
to hold it together and get it done. Don't feel, you have to think, you use your mind,
Mm.
you use logic, you use planning. We discount the value
Mm.
of, well, our menstrual cycle, which is a whole other podcast topic, for one, but
Yeah.
holds immense wisdom. We've
Right?
learned how to neutralize that. We don't wanna have the emotional ebbs and flows that come with that come in general with
Mhm.
being a woman, yet that is our power and our gift. So,
Mhm.
if we're afraid of our own emotions and we're shutting them
Mm.
down and trying to be even keel and level-headed and logical and nice and neat, we're really doing ourselves a disservice. We're siphoning
Mhm.
off our life force energy, which is our libido. That's our libido really just means like zest for life or life force energy. That's really what that word
Oh,
means.
cool.
But our
Yeah.
sexual vitality is they're the same thing. Sexual vitality is that thrust and drive towards life. It's the thing that creates life. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
How did we all get here?
Yeah.
We all
From
came through
exactly
a
that.
vagina and there was a penis involved somewhere along the way.
Right? That's awesome. And that actually probably goes back to I was thinking about you saying with your family that you were not allowed to be angry and you had to
Yes.
suppress a lot of that. So that can also really lead to that as well, which probably is why you went through some of the stuff that you did because you're not only suppressing that feeling, then you're kind of scared about feeling anything,
All of
I would
it.
think.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
sort of suppress the joy and the pleasure and
Hmm.
everything else, and I think, to reach deep states of bliss and, different types of orgasm,
Hmm.
not just, the clitoral orgasm, but really like full body G-spot cervical orgasms that just flow through our body like an ocean.
Mm.
That is a different pathway than what, a lot of us learn the clitoral pathway, which is lovely, but it's actually a pretty simple, not simple, but it doesn't require as much vulnerability to have a clitoral orgasm, right? We
Okay.
don't, what I'm speaking to here around the emotions and this is that's not as much of a component of a clitoral orgasm for most
Hmm.
of us. But if we
Mm.
want to have just multiple different types of access to different types of pleasure, then our emotional energy is really key to that. And our ability to surrender and trust our own bodies and to say yes to those emotions and to be in with a partner who isn't freaked out by it. If you start
Yeah.
crying, for example, right? Like, I'm just going to shut her down. Dudes who are listening, like, don't ask your woman, why are you crying right now?
Like
Like, it's not about you. Most likely, it's not about you. All
right,
the dudes think, like, what I
right.
do? I did something
What I do.
wrong.
Yes. Exactly, exactly. Well, I love that you're kind of separating, all of the feelings and emotions and all of those things that we're supposed to have separate from the orgasm. So, because what I'm hearing is that while orgasms are great and a huge part of sexual experience, is not the be all and end all of it, right? There's so much more to it than that. You're saying it's just a pathway. And, our culture is obsessed with climaxes. What we
Yeah.
talk about, I talk about this all the time, right? And you've said
Yeah.
that focusing on orgasm can really reduce satisfaction. So
Mm.
can you kind of explain that paradox for me?
Yes, and first I wanna make a difference between climax and orgasm because we
Mm.
conflate the 2, and I even sometimes when I speak, I say
Yes,
that 'cause just we tend to think of the 2 as one and the same, but
I
really
do.
what I try to highlight is that climax is one thing, but orgasm is a whole orgasm is literally a pathway. It's our ability to experience, to feel, to receive, and to respond to stimulation, let's say, or
Okay.
sensation. Let's just even use sensation.
Yeah.
We could say pleasurable sensation, ideally, but it could even just be sensation. Our
Okay.
ability to feel that and to respond to it. Whereas climax is the mainstream, like clitoral orgasm or an ejaculatory orgasm for a man. Climax.
That's the climax. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we tend to think of as orgasm.
S-
I like to make that distinction and
Yeah.
why our obsession with that can get in the way is because it becomes a goal. And then suddenly the entire moment of
Mm.
intimacy becomes all about how do we get to the finish line. It's a
Mhm.
radical idea for most people to consider what if there wasn't a finish line? Like what if
Yeah.
that wasn't the end game? Like let's just say cool, if a climax happens or an orgasm happens, cool if that like arises in the moment, but what if we stop trying to make it happen and go for it? Because there's a
Mhm.
real shift that happens in our brain when all of a sudden we're like going for the end goal. If
Mhm.
you really slow down and you pay attention to this, you'll start to notice that there's literally something that changes in our brain when suddenly we're going for the orgasm or the climax versus when we're like, "Oh, look, oh, okay, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to hold off. Let me just breathe and relax, breathe
Yeah.
and relax." And when we go into relaxation and awareness and we get rid of trying to chase after the finish line, that's the
Mhm.
gateway into deeper types of orgasmic sensations and different types
Mm.
of orgasm, like a full bodied orgasm, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I find that very interesting because I think it's very similar to anything when you're kind of put on the spot to succeed in something. I enjoy playing pickleball. So the other day I was playing pickleball with my ex-husband, oddly enough, and he is just like puts the pressure on me. And the last thing, like, this is it. This is game point. It's all on you. And it goes right into my head and I
Yeah.
just fuck it. I'm like,
Yeah.
screw up immediately. And so I think of it very similar to that because I put so much pressure, and I think a lot of people do, they put so much pressure on themselves to actually get to that point of orgasm,
Right.
like you said. And then it's like, it's such a letdown because you've put so much pressure on. And
Yeah.
if you do, it never ends up being quite what you hope it's going to be because
Right.
there's so much pressure. But it's also, if you don't, then you're like, you really screwed with me and messed me up.
Yeah.
And so I'm really relating to that. And yeah, it's becoming
It's
very obvious that that's what I do. I just put so much pressure on
And
myself
what
to
you're
have it.
speaking to is because that creates tension. That's what we would call like a form of so there's 3 types of tension. I said tension is the biggest obstacle to pleasure. And there's
Mhm.
that emotional tension I talked about earlier. What you're speaking now is one of the other aspects of tension, which is mental tension.
Mm.
Suddenly I have to perform. Suddenly I
Yeah.
have to produce a result. Suddenly you're tightening up in your mind, and the last type of tension is physical tension, because I'll bet you that your body is also tensing
Yep.
in those
Yep.
situations, that
Absolutely.
physical tension. And
Yeah.
so relaxation is really a gateway. And even if you think about like Zen masters, gosh, when I was a teenager, that book Zen and the Art of Archery, someone gave me a
Mhm.
copy of that book when I was like 16 years old, and I just really resonated with it. And I mean, there's just
Mhm.
stuff in there about really like this state of relaxation and being one with the bow and the arrow, and that the arrow finds the target when we're not trying to hit the target. And
So
it's,
good.
it just relates so much to also what we're talking about here. When we just go into states of relaxation, it's really where we are most available and most present,
Mm.
really in the present. And when we're
Interesting.
present, now we can notice what's actually happening. What am I really feeling in my body? Or what am I needing right now?
Mm.
Or what am I wanting? So that's why in
Yeah.
the triad, the first triad of the pleasure keys, presence is really the byproduct of relaxation and awareness. And then
Mm.
from there, we move into, like, how do we identify wants and needs and give voice to that, and then start negotiating how we get
Yeah.
these things met, and et cetera.
Oof, I love that. Okay, so let's shift a little bit to some of the women that have a low sex drive.
Mhm.
And so you've said that low sex drive in women is kind of just a myth, right?
Yes.
So what's actually going on there if that is a myth?
Yeah, I think well, I mean, my goodness, I could have been a low sex drive woman in my marriage, but I am anything but that
But
in a different context, right? Like, I
yeah.
really am. I have a very high and active libido. So there's
Mhm.
sometimes that's what's going on. It's the environment and the context that she's in. Is
Mm.
she feeling safe
Okay.
in her relationship? Is she feeling, is there stuff she's feeling about her body? Are there things in her life that are not quite aligned that need to be, that she hasn't been addressing? So
Yeah.
so that's a really big part of it that we tend to overlook. We also have differences in how our sexual nervous system, so to speak, are wired. So we have there's a model called the dual control model of sexual arousal. And
Mhm.
the idea is that we have a sexual inhibition system, which is like the brakes, and we have a
Okay.
sexual excitation system, which is like our accelerator. So if you think about it
Okay.
like a car, okay?
Yeah.
And each of us have a unique combination. Some of us have very sensitive brakes where if like the lighting in the room isn't just right, we tense up and our libido goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't have everything, if we hear a sound in the middle of intimacy, we lose our turn on. Very
Mhm.
sensitive brakes. So there's certain things that can get our brakes activated,
Okay.
and then we also have things with our accelerator. We can have like a really slow accelerator, like sometimes it's hard to get that engine going, or we can have a really sensitive
Mhm.
accelerator, which is just kind of going all the time. That's like your high libido label people, like their accelerator's
Mm.
very like, oh, it's just kind of always ready, it's always hot. And there's other
Yeah.
people where it's just not quite the case. You have to do other things to get that engine revved up. So if we
Okay.
look at it that way, sometimes that's all that's going on. Sometimes her brakes are just so high for any number of reasons, but her accelerator might actually be kind of medium or really high. And
Mm.
it's just a matter then of how do we get the brakes off? We have to
Yeah.
identify what the brakes are in order to help get them off.
Okay.
And so that's not really a low libido. That's just called we gotta, make sure
Figure
the
out what's
kids are
going
out
on.
of the house and that I have lots of time to, take a hot bath, get relaxed. I have to maybe make
Yeah.
sure my partner loves me and that I feel words of encouragement about my body. Like they're, right.
Mm,
That's how do we get the brakes off? That might be all it is for some people.
right.
So that's
Now,
not
what
really like I'm low libido.
a low
That, I
libido.
just think we have to get out of that dualistic thinking about it, I think.
Yes, it is a mindset. So what do you think about if you have a partner? So maybe it's not you as much, but it's a partner that's putting so much pressure on himself.
Yeah.
So and I had that situation and he put so much pressure on
Yeah.
himself to perform all the
Oh,
time. If everything wasn't perfect and it was
oh,
just, if
yeah.
it didn't line up with, he liked to play music, if it didn't line up with everything that he was doing with the beat of the music, he was so in his head and it made me I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Do you want me to do this or don't you? He he would get frustrated with a lot of things, and you're just kind of going, I don't know how to help you or to help this go better because then that is obviously messing with me and what I'm feeling doing because now I'm thinking I have to be perfect in order for him to be perfect. Right. So
Wow.
what do you kind of suggest for somebody? I'm not with him anymore, so it's
Yeah.
okay. But that didn't work out.
Yeah, and for good
It's
reason.
stressful. But I took his music and his lighting. That was great. So what do you suggest for somebody that is maybe going through that? Or what could I have done differently to help that situation? Is that just a conversation? I don't know.
So
What I
I
could
think,
have done.
I mean, that intense need to perform can lead to and men, you see that show up as erectile dysfunction. I don't know if that was part
Mm,
of that relationship
it
for you or
was.
not. Yes.
It was. It
Right,
was.
because we're in the wrong part of the brain. That's the
Yeah.
sympathetic nervous system usually where we're like fight or flight instead of parasympathetic where we need to be so we can get blood flow to the genitals. Sexual arousal
Mhm.
isn't going to come online if we're like, "Oh my god, like I'm so afraid and everything's got to be this certain way." Like in a woman what it looks like is loss of interest in sex or difficulty getting turned on because it's the brakes
Yeah.
coming on. And so what you're describing, I mean, that's a little bit OCD. I don't know if this man had that or not, but sort of that intent need to have everything exactly perfect.
Yeah.
That's one thing. It's another thing to just have sensitive breaks and maybe just you need the
Mhm.
temperature of the room a certain way so that you can relax. And that's what we're looking for is how do we get enough things in place where we can then go into a state of relaxation, not
Yeah.
hypervigilance. What you're describing in
Okay.
that man is like hypervigilance, and that's
Yeah.
different than maybe I just need some candles and music and a nice massage for a few minutes, and then I can start to shift gears.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. I need to head to a
yeah, and
mechanic on that one.
how do you help that? You tell
Yeah.
him relax and breathe and I don't know.
I don't know, that's a
Do
lot
some
of work on
therapy,
my part.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing, Susan, it's like, it's hard enough, like, I don't wanna have to sit and figure out how you can fix yourself and
No.
get off,
Right.
right? Like, you
Right.
just gotta figure that out and deal with that.
Mm.
Sorry. Yeah, go see the mechanic, fix your brakes. So okay, so if someone is in a bit of a dry spell, emotionally, physically, what would you suggest to get their spark back? What kinds of things can they do?
Yeah, so a dry spell, what do you mean by dry spell? Like, be more specific.
Like, okay, so if a woman or a man, they're just not feeling it sexually, they're kind of like, I have a headache every night, they don't wanna be involved in it. Maybe they've got a little, stress at work and stuff, but they're just not feeling connected to their partner.
Yeah.
What can they do to kind of bring that connection back, the spark,
Yeah,
and
assuming
get it
that
going
someone's
again?
like, "We need to connect," because if 2 people are like that, that's the death of
That's rough, yeah.
connection, so I'm assuming the other partner is probably like, "Hey, I
Yeah,
wanna
one's
connect
a
with
go,
you."
one's a no. Okay.
I think a lovely practice is just I call it like an intimacy date, and this can be
Mhm,
done fully clothed or naked, but
mhm,
ideally you get undressed, you're together in bed, there's really very little talking, and it's just eye to eye, breath to breath, body to body, and just
mm,
connecting through the eyes, through the breath, with the body, skin to skin connected, and just having that be a way of, coming into presence with your partner where there's not you're not going into words. You're not
Yeah,
going
I
into
love
talking and
that.
rehashing all the problems in the relationship or all the stress of your day. There's other
Yeah.
practices for that. But what can be so healing about this is that it can allow us to really drop beneath the stress response causes us to that feeling of disconnect that we feel a lot of times. It's like our we kind of close off, right? In
Yeah.
the stress
Yeah.
response. And what this can do, it can bring us into coherence and harmony with our partner. Just our nervous systems
Mm.
start to co-regulate. And it can also help produce oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone through that skin to skin contact, the eye to eye contact,
Mm.
synchronizing the breathing. And oxytocin is what helps us feel connected. So that's a really simple practice that
Yes.
even if you just do it for a few minutes, maybe
Yeah.
longer than a couple minutes, because sometimes it takes time to really get the nervous system relaxed and to drop deep enough and to allow
Mhm.
yourself to feel the emotions that maybe are wanting to be felt that you haven't been letting yourself
Interesting.
feel the
Yeah.
vulnerability and the sadness
No,
maybe or
I think
whatever's
that's
there that
great.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's great. So I am one that I like to kiss with my eyes open, and a lot of people find
I
that
do
weird.
too.
You
I
do
do
too?
too. Yeah,
It's hot, but it's also a
exactly.
connection, like, when you
Yeah,
are,
see the
like, there.
eyes.
Yes, I don't really understand, I guess, for so long why we're all closing our eyes, and it's just such an automatic thing. People actually find it weird. I think the guy on The Bachelor was
I
doing that,
was
and
gonna
it was like,
say, yeah, they made so much fun of that guy.
yeah, and I was like, "Wait, am I weird?" Because I
I know.
love that. And I really try when I'm with a partner to get them to do that with me. They all
Yes.
come in with their eyes closed and I'm like, just try it. And they kind of like, oh, I can't, you're so close and so weird. But when you're in that moment and the eyes are open, it's such a different connection
Yeah,
and feeling.
it's
I think everybody should try it.
I do
Mm.
too, and I think it's very
Yeah.
vulnerable, which is maybe why we
Yes.
sometimes don't make the eye contact, because,
Hmm.
it's really like a different level of vulnerability and
Yeah.
connection that can happen where we're just
Yeah.
connecting in.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's so funny. So you were talking about the triad and you said, so one was we had the emotional and the mental. Did I miss the third one? What did you say was the third
Physical
one?
on
Physical.
tension being the biggest obstacle to pleasure. There's 3
Okay.
types.
Okay.
You've got mental, emotional, and physical.
Okay. Okay. Good. I
Most of
want
the
to.
time most of the time physical tension is a result of, mental and emotional tension.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
'Cause you're just so worked up. Yeah. Okay. Well, you've worked with hundreds of couples. So as we wind this down, what's one truth about sexual connection that almost everyone gets wrong? Is there
Yeah,
something?
I think what everyone gets wrong is that it's all about genitals.
Yeah. So true. Oh, that's such a good one.
When I say, like,
Wow.
how I define, like, sex is really about connection. It's how am I connecting with myself, with my higher self or divine, and then how do I connect with the world out here, the external, like, what I call the horizontal relation, and
Mm,
it can look like how do I show up, um, in my relationship
yeah,
life as
yeah.
well as to my beloved.
Ah, I love this. This is so good. So much good info. So in a few minutes, I want to get like where everybody can find
Yeah.
you so they can find out more about this. And if they have questions, if you guys have questions out there, you can email me at Andrea at from Mrs. the number 2 Ms.com. So if you guys have any questions, don't be scared to ask because this is the way we learn and we experiment. I mean, I have learned so much from doing this podcast, things that I was afraid to ask, afraid to talk about. And here I talk about everything now. Kissing with my eyes open and all this good stuff. So I love that. I love that. So before you go, I want to do a little rapid fire from Mrs. to Ms. Just 10
Okay,
easy
yes.
questions related to what you
Oh, okay,
do. I
let's
love
try.
that. Super easy. Just whichever comes to mind first. Okay. Number one, morning or midnight intimacy?
Ooh, morning for sure.
Morning. Morning. Most people are morning. I'm a night girl. Okay, number two, what's one myth about women's pleasure that drives you crazy?
That the man is responsible for giving it to her.
Great answer. Yes, listen up, women and men. Number three, biggest turn on confidence, connection, or curiosity?
Ooh, probably connection.
Connection is good. Number four, what's sexier, vulnerability or mystery?
Ooh, vulnerability, hands down.
Mm, love it. Number five, one thing every woman should stop apologizing for in bed.
being in their own enjoyment and pleasure, and especially being emotional. Be
Oh, that's
emotional,
so
women.
good.
Cry, let it
Yeah.
out, be wild.
You're right, because we immediately go, "I'm sorry," and we start
"Okay,
making
crying."
excuses,
Yeah,
right?
right?
Just
Yep.
just lay in it. All right, number 6, finish this sentence. Foreplay begins when.
You wake up in the morning.
Oh, yeah, girl. I love some good foreplay. Number 7, what's one body-based practice you swear by for reconnecting with desire?
Ooh. Breathing into the heart and womb. There's a beautiful practice I teach,
Mm.
connecting heart to womb and just breathing that connection. Super simple, but exceptionally profound.
Oh, good, good. Okay, number 8, biggest red flag you spot instantly in couples.
Oh, defensiveness and, yeah, I'd say
Yeah,
defensiveness.
yeah, it's a good one. Number 9, what's something you wish more men understood about women's arousal?
That a lot of women, our bodies need more time,
Mm.
and it's not about you. It's not about you.
Not about you.
Doesn't mean you're a bad lover.
Yes. I mean, sometimes, right? They can be. They should know that. Number 10, if pleasure had a theme song, what would yours be?
Oh my god, I love that question. I'm gonna have to really think of that. Okay, how about Marvin Gaye? Either
Let's get it
let's get it
on.
on.
That's a great one. I love that. Thanks for playing. Those were good answers. Those were good answers. I like that. That was fun. All right. Tell everybody, Susan, where can they find you? If they want
Yeah.
to come to you for coaching, your retreats, they just want to follow you on social media, tell us everything where they can
Yeah,
find
the
you.
best spot, I'm gonna keep it really, really simple for everybody. Pathwaytopleasure.com is how you connect with all of my stuff. You can link to my
Mm.
social media accounts at pathwaytopleasure.com. I do offer a free consultation if someone's thinking about, like, what would it look like to work with someone like myself? I work with couples and women around the world, so,
Oh,
location's
perfect.
not an issue. And then I have a free, a really awesome resource that I just created called the Sexual Speedometer Test.
Ooh.
People, we were talking earlier about the dual control model, and it's not
Yeah.
your high libido, low libido. It's what's your combination of brakes and accelerators. So this test will help show you exactly where you are on that spectrum. And then I'll give you tips for what to do for how to get the brakes off or get your accelerator going so that you can get back
Oh,
on the same page with your partner if that mismatched libido is an issue, or if just you've been labeled the low libido partner, or you're the high libido partner and you're like, what do I do with all this energy? So
yeah.
that's available at sexualspeedometertest.com, and it's a
Oh my
great
God. I want to do
resource.
that.
It's super simple, doesn't take very long to do, and, it'll give you some great information and, like, stuff that you can do right away to start
Yeah.
working with your libido.
Oh, perfect. And I'll put all of this in the show notes for everybody to find as well. So amazing. You have so many cool resources and I
Thank
love that. I
you.
got to go check it out cuz
Please.
yeah, being straight up, I need to get my shit together with my
Yeah.
whole sexual life too. Here I'm talking about it, but I'm not walking the walk. And so
Yes.
I need to do that. So you're really opening my eyes to that might be my next step to really focus on that.
Good.
So amazing. And I would love to have you I'm just going to plug myself in here for a second that I have a new podcast that I've also started called Menopause Love Lounge.
I
Yes,
love it.
it's so good, Susan.
Ah!
It is 6 amazing women that we host it together. It is just raw and real
Wow.
conversations. It's not like a question and answer. It's just like
Right.
a let's have a chat about it
Yep.
because everybody's going crazy. And we
Totally.
would love to have you on at some
I
point.
would love to
Yes?
come. This whole area, yeah, the whole menopause conversation, I'm so passionate about it because I'm at that transition stage and
Yep.
really loving the conversation. I would love to come and be a
Oh,
part of that. It sounds
great.
like fun. Thank
It
you.
is fun. We get real raw and we get dirty sometimes too, which is just fun to
Let's
me.
do it.
That's
Yeah.
that's good stuff. It's
Make
good
it fun.
stuff. All right, you guys, make sure you guys are following Susan. She is so amazing. She has so much great information. So take notes and go check out all of her stuff. And for those of you listening to me, thank you so much for joining me this week. And you can find me on social media at from.mrs.2.ms. And you can find From Mrs. to Ms. anywhere you listen to your podcast. So go check it out, guys, and email me with any questions, comments, suggestions, anything you want. I'm there for you. So you guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.